Hey, this is Matt Wenning at winningstrength.com, and today we're going to talk about the flags that hang up in my gym, since everybody wants to talk trash about all the flags that I have and all these political things. Well, let me tell you something. There is no flag in here that's political. Every flag that's up here is up here for a specific reason, and today we're going to go over a handful of those flags so you guys know where they come from and why they're at the gym. So the first flag we want to talk about is the Ohio State flag. So obviously we're here in Columbus, Ohio. We bleed Ohio State, even though I'm originally from Indiana. But the reason that this flag means so much to me up here is because I used to train Earl Bruce. Earl Bruce was the head football coach in the 80s, and I trained him the last handful of years that he was alive, and it was a true blessing. He was the head coach when Urban Meyer was a GA, and that's why Urban Meyer came back to Ohio State, because of Earl Bruce asked him if he would, and it was a kind of a family thing. So we are very traditional here with Ohio State. We try to support them as much as we can, and obviously that came from Earl Bruce from about 2012 to about 2016. Probably one of the greatest guys you'd ever meet, so that's why that flag's up here. All right, so this flag is the Israeli flag. Now, we're not religious here. We don't condone either side of whatever's going on over there, but Israeli Special Forces got a hold of me and asked me if I'd do some online coaching with them. We wrote them some workouts and we sent them some high-level training with the equipment that they had. What's so important about this is this was one of the first special groups that I actually trained via satellite, meaning we wrote their workouts, we looked at all their equipment, and we designed what they had. We trained them for upwards of about 2.5 years and saw outstanding results in injury reduction. So this was one of the first groups that we actually did that for via satellite. This was one of the biggest Army groups that I trained. I was in charge of 6,500 ground troops at Fort Carson, Colorado. Lived out there for nearly 20 weeks and then was checking up on them for 2.5 years. As you can see, a lot of the guys that signed the flag had actually been here to the gym. We had trained them for a 2-week stint for them to go get on a tour over in Afghanistan. But 4th Infantry is what made me famous training the Army. So before I used to train 4th Infantry, I trained actually Ranger Regiment, and it was an experimental. I was just kind of an assessor and an assistant. But here, I actually was in charge of the whole group, which was the first time I think one person had ever been in charge of that many guys, 6,500 ground troops. So all these guys that signed these flags were some of the dudes that were the majors and lieutenant colonels and full-bird colonels. So this was kind of me stepping in. Now, what's funny is after I did this and the injury rates dropped and their performance rates went up, this actually got me as an advisor to the Pentagon from 2014 to 16. The next big unit that I worked for was Airborne Division, 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Now, Fort Bragg, I actually got to watch these guys jump out of planes. I got to watch these guys train. I got to see how actually physically messed up these guys get from doing these crazy jumps out of these planes. So Airborne Division was different. We had a little bit more of a budget because the groups were a hair bit smaller. They already had decent gyms, which seemed like the strength coaches that were working at 82nd were already kind of on the right track, but we had a lot of lower back, knee, and shoulder injuries here because the guys' impact rates were so high. So this is kind of what taught me to start training in a traction-based environment. So that's why we have their flag up here. So the next flag that always gets a lot of slack on the internet is the Soviet flag. No, we're not communists here. Yes, we love America. And as you can see, this flag is lower than every flag in the particular building, okay? So let's get all that straight. But what you do have to do is you have to give the communist system and the Soviets their due credit. If it weren't for them studying and mastering training for so many years between the years of 1950s and 1980s, we would have very little to no knowledge of actual strength training and actually how we train. So if you guys know and understand conjugate and you guys understand varying sequences and speed work, you're going to understand that that came from the communist Olympic weightlifting system. You're also going to notice that a lot of the coaches that used to train in the Soviet Union for Olympic lifting have all went to China. Why? When you have more control over the athlete, you can create better results. Now, is that great for having a perfect life? No. But at the end of the day, if you want to be super strong, you have to give up certain things. And the guys in the communist system were more than happy to give up factory jobs that were dirty, probably low pay, to possibly be a superstar, to be an Olympic lifter. Now, we don't agree with a lot of the way that they do their governments and things of that nature back in those days. They ruined a lot of people creating this, but they also had great professors and people that sacrificed their lives into human performance. So I think we need to give the Soviets their due credit, even if we don't agree with their political standpoints. The next flag that we hold a lot of regard in is the flag of heroes. This is the flag that was set up for the 9/11 disaster that we had in New York, where they hit the World Trade Center bombings. a lot of people lost their lives. A lot of these names are the people that actually lost their lives, police, fire. Those people went into a situation they probably knew they weren't going to come out of. And that was a transition point for me in college to start wondering how I could help the tactical units in order to make them physically stronger, more resilient to injury, and be able to help the people and population a lot better. That was a big transitional point for me, trying to figure out how I could use strength conditioning not only to make people better in sports, but also make them better out in the field where it really matters, where we're doing hard work and we're around people that might need us at the worst time of their life. Now, with that being said, we used to do a lot of online coaching for Queens, New York. So they actually sent me a jacket. The fire department of New York for Queens sent me that jacket, which has, as a token of appreciation for writing their workouts. So that was one of the first fire departments that we did via satellite, which was really impressive and awesome and an honor to do. So in closing, at Ludus Magnus, all of these flags have a special place in our hearts for either the contracts we've done or the notoriety and the respect that we give for other countries that sacrifice their population or their dying need to understand how to train, like the Soviets and the Bulgarians. The flag that we had from Israeli was due to training some Israeli special forces. So, like I said, all these flags that you guys see at the gym, they all have a reason. We don't just put them up in here to have. We've actually done work in these areas for these people, or we give these people massive respect. So go on winningstrength.com, join Patreon, and kind of see what we used for the Soviets, what we've used from the Bulgarians, and how it shaped a lot of our training, both in the manuals and how we do online coaching.